welcome to Beverly's. My name's Kathy. Today I'm going to show you how to make a rag quilt. This same technique could be used to make a table runner or placemats if you wanted to use a cotton print or a plaid. I'm using flannel for this particular quilt, and let's go ahead and get started. First of all, you're going to want to select your fabrics. I chose 5 flannel prints that all coordinate well with each other. The number of prints is really up to you. I just chose 5 for this particular deal. You're going to want to decide before you have your fabric cut what you want the back of your quilt to be. In other words, the front of mine is all patchwork, and I also decided that the back was going to be patchwork. But you could decide if you wanted to have just one print for all of these squares on the back, and it would look like it was a solid back. And if that's the case, obviously you're going to want to get more fabric of that particular print, but that's a decision you're going to want to make before you cut it all. Alrighty, after that's been decided, you're going to cut all of your fabric into 8-inch squares. My particular quilt is 8-inch squares, and I have 5 rows going across, and I have 5 rows going up and down. I put my pieces together, my front and my back, wrong sides together before I cut my squares. I used a rotary cutter, and it was quite easy to go through 2 pieces of flannel, and that just made it easy to have that step already taken care of, and the 2 have been put together. When you have your whole stack of all of your squares cut, your next step is to take those squares and sew them with a 1/2-inch seam all the way around. So I did that. I'm just showing you here 5 that I have completed that all have been stitched with that 1/2-inch seam. When you've got your whole stack, I would suggest that you either go to the floor or go to a table that has a really large workspace, because what you're going to want to do is to lay out your squares in the pattern that you have selected. I wanted 5 prints to go across, and I wanted 5 prints to go down. So you just want to lay those all out. When you've got everything exactly the way you would like it, you're going to go and you're going to pin each of your rows together. You're just going to put some pins there, probably about 3 pins going across. You'll do the same thing there. Keep going until you have them pinned all the way across, and you do that for each row. And it's going to look something like this. I've pinned here, 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 and here. There's one strip. I've got another one. There'll be another panel. And I do that until I have all 5 rows, and they are all pinned together. Now, I take those panels, and I'm going to want to put each one of those panels, strips, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to stitch them together after I've pinned them. But at this point, I recommend that you go back to the floor, back to the table, and lay out all those strips exactly the way you had planned them before, because if you just randomly pick up your strips, you could end up with something like this. When I just randomly pick up these strips, I've got 2 here that match, and that's not the way I had planned it out. I wanted them to not match in each of my rows. So let's just imagine that this is the way I had it. All right, to pin these together in the directions that I printed up for you, I told you to press one seam up and the other seam down. And the reason for doing that is that if you had all these going one way, that would be like 12 thicknesses of flannel, and your sewing machine wouldn't handle that very well. So I match my seams, press one up, and this one I press back, and I pin it. And then I go back, I would pin my end here, and put another one here in the middle, and just move down so that you've got seams matching again. Press up, press down, and pin. Now, just another little pointer I can give you is that I decided to have this side that would be going through my machine like this. I wanted it to have the seam going up so that when the foot of the machine is coming down here, if it folds, I can see. I can lift up the foot, smooth it all out, and go through. The back is going to just feed through quite nicely. If my back had been pinned up like this, I would have to keep checking to make sure that it hadn't folded down. Even though it's pinned, it still oftentimes wants to pop up. So that explains why I had decided to go up this way. When you get ready to, okay, imagine that's pinned all the way across there. When you get ready to pin your next panel, same thing. This goes up, match the seam first, this one press up, this one you press down, and you pin it together. Even though that feels like, well, it doesn't feel like, it actually doesn't. It doesn't match this. You would think that this should be totally smooth. It doesn't matter because you're going to be snipping the seams here, and so it's going to totally open up. When you've pinned that all the way on all those sides, let's clear that away. So once you have all those panels stitched together, you're going to have a quilt. And last thing that we need to do here is to show you how to do some of this snipping. I really recommend that you use a pair of spring action scissors. It will really help save your hand. I start, but you can start anywhere. You're going to just work across your seams. I'm just picking a section here to show you that you're going to want to snip about 1/8 of an inch from your seam on both sides. I like to snip both sides, kind of get it opened up here, and now you're going to snip across about every 1/2 inch. If you go every 1/3, it's okay. If you go every 1/4, it's not going to be a problem. I would recommend that you kind of get a pattern going and you snip the same going across, but it is very forgiving. By the time you throw this into the washing machine, you're going to be fine. I have my hand back here. You want to be careful to not snip into the quilt, and you also don't want to snip into your seams, obviously. So you're going to do that all over your entire quilt. I go close to my seam, and then I snip across. You're going to snip every seam on the whole quilt. You're going to go to all your outside edges. You're going to snip the living daylights out of this quilt. And then just follow the directions that we gave for washing, and you're going to end up with just a really nice, cozy rag quilt. Thanks for stopping by.